Hello everyone, and welcome to the first installment on this video series for the development of Vending Machine Tycoon. Now, this is not something that I'm doing as a full-time job. I'm doing this in my spare time, so if I'm successful, it should show that it's fairly easy nowadays to make a relatively complex game in your own spare time without taking too long. Now, a little bit about me. My name is Ahmed, and I've been programming for several years now. Some of my contributions have been to the popular 3D engine Erlicht, and you can see my face here listed as one of the people on the team, and some of the things that I've worked on here. Right, carrying on from that terrible introduction. What is Vending Machine Tycoon, and why am I here? Well, this is something that I've just decided to do in my spare time, and the reason I'm making these videos is two-part. One of them is I've got quite a few friends who want to learn how to code or make games and all that kind of stuff, and this could sort of be something that they could watch and maybe learn from. The second, more selfish and more important reason is that I'm a bit of an exhibitionist, and I found that I'm starting to lose motivation to work on this project at times. So this is one way of keeping myself motivated by, showing off by recording a video. Right. So what the hell is this weird red box right here? Well, this is a vending machine that I've drawn myself. Horrible programmer art, but I'm hoping to get better over time. Sorry, I was just taking a drink there. I am planning to do all of the artwork and the coding for this game. So, ignore what I showed you before about Erlicht, because this project won't be using that. This project will be using an engine called CoCos2dX, and this is the website here, cocos2d-x.org, and they actually have several products, as you can see. Where is it? Oh, download page is probably more useful. As you can see, they have CoCos2dX, CoCos2d.js, Code IDE, and CoCos. Now, CoCos2dX is a C++ engine, and CoCos2d.js is a framework that's built on top of CoCos2dX, and this allows you to develop games in JavaScript. Code IDE is something that I'm using at the moment. This is it right here. It looks very similar to Eclipse, if any of you are familiar with that, and that's because it literally is Eclipse. They just changed around a few things, kind of like what Google did with the Android Studio before they switched over to the IntelliJ IDE. And CoCos here, aptly named, is I don't know, some kind of editor thing. I'm not really planning on using that because I hate messing around with visual UI thingies, Photoshop, whatever. Right, so I'm actually going to be using CoCos2d.js right here. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have definitely picked CoCos2dX because I was a bit of a C++ elitist, and I basically just thought C++ is the greatest language on earth and God's gift to mankind. But I still think that to an extent, but I've been using JavaScript so much lately, and it's really easy to develop with. And if you're doing something in your own spare time, it's just much easier to come home and code some JavaScript rather than spend all those hours hunting down memory leaks and out of range exceptions and all that carry on. Which you don't have to worry about that stuff specifically in JavaScript, but there are other things that you will have to worry about, and hopefully I can get into that later in this series. Now, okay, moving on from all that. So this is the CoCross Code IDE, and unfortunately I have already started this project. So this being the first installment, there's a bit of catching up to do. Whoa, this is me just being really mad at something, and if I get some time I might explain that later. Okay, so I'm just gonna catch you guys up on what I've done so far. It isn't too much. Basically, here we have app.js, which is the main JavaScript file that you initialize your application with. And basically, CoCross 2D.js, or CoCross 2D in general, you have these things called scenes. And each scene is, well, a scene, essentially, in your game. So the main menu is a scene. Then once you exit the main menu, you'd be entering a different scene. So here I have home scene, I have settings scene, and you'll see there's some code laid out already, but this is all just a basic skeleton. The majority of this is just what you might call boilerplate code. Right, so what am I doing in app.js? I might as well just run it so you can see what's going on here. This button runs it. Oh, it's way too big. Okay, so I've got my horrible logo, which I need to do something about. And I've got a button, settings doesn't do anything. Got a little guy right here, and you click new game. Takes you into the screen with a, what is this? Vending machine in the background. And a few buttons down here. So these switch between the different screens in the game when you're playing the game. So the way I've got it set up, or the way I'm planning to do it, I don't have an official design document, I'm just kind of playing the game design by ear, is this hopefully resembles a security camera. So this is going to be the view where you can spy on your vending machines that you have in your vending machine empire. Well, I should really explain what a vending machine tycoon is first. So essentially you have all these different games, tycoon games such as Pizza Tycoon, Transport Tycoon. So for instance, Pizza Tycoon, you would create your own pizza restaurant, make a lot of money hopefully. Transport Tycoon, you would what is this? This looks interesting. Oh yeah, so Transport Tycoon, you would build airports and trains and all that transporty stuff. So a tycoon game is essentially a game where you get to pretend to be Donald Trump without being a racist bigot, unless you're into being a racist bigot, then that's up to you. Right. So, Vending Machine Tycoon. Back to how this is going to work. So, surveillance area. Get to see your vending machines. And this is actually missing a background, which I had earlier, and I must have changed something and screwed it up. This is supposed to be your contracts. So, I figured as a vending machine tycoonist, you would sign contracts for each of your products, such as water bottles or whatever you're selling in your vending machine, and you'd sign a contract with the company for a term. And well, I'll get into that later. This one's supposed to look like a person with a little name tag, so that's where you hire your employees, repairmen, and other sorts of people that are involved in the vending machine industry. This hopefully resembles a shopping cart. Once again, my art skills are in the stage of needing to be improved, so we'll see how that goes. And I spent so long trying to create a cog that, just to imply that this is a setting screen, but it just looks weird. It looks kind of like a hexagonal kind of, I don't know. really doesn't look like a cog to me. It looks kind of squashed. Okay, so that's how the screen's gonna play out, and I'm just gonna dive into the code a bit here. So the main menu layer, we had a layer color here. So layer color is basically just a box with a color on it. So for instance, let me just fire this up again. This background here is a layer color, and the color is 0020255, and this is a RGB color, so red, green, blue, alpha, and each of these values are going from 0 to 255. So we got no red, no green, and just a pinch of blue. So you get this, you know, almost black with a slight blue tint to it. Right. And here is a sprite, and I've written a function that that loads images and in a specific way, which I might as well really get into it now. Basically, what games do is, or game engines more specifically, what they do is they do this thing called texture filtering. And you can have bilinear filtering, trilinear, and you know, the Wikipedia page probably does a good job of explaining what that's all about. Let's see. This is probably right. So this is a good example right here. I'm just gonna. So this is an image that's been. This is an image that's had no filtering. This is an image that's had bilinear filtering, and this is an image that's had trilinear filtering. And so for most applications, you kind of want the best quality filtering, which is this first one right here. But for the purpose of my game, which is it's a pixel art game, so I don't want all this, you know, fancy filtering stuff. I want it to be like this, and therefore when I load my images, I specify a cc.nearest parameter. I load the image and then I set the texture parameters, and that way I can tell the engine that I don't want any fancy filtering going on my textures. Now this is a bit of a fuck up by the Crowcross2D.js team in that they left out the cc.nearest defined. So basically you can't actually, there's no value to pass to the engine, so I had to actually just hack it in myself right here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just don't worry, because I'm doing a horrible job explaining it. But it's not important, so it really doesn't matter. But if you do know what I'm talking about, then that's cool too. Now, let's see here. And adding another sprite here, which is dude, and you'll see right here is that I'm scaling the sprites. That's because these images are actually so tiny. This guy here is actually just, this is how big he is. He's small. So I've got to make him bigger and give him this cool pixelated look. You know, think about the size is nice. You can see the jaggedy edges. That's all on purpose. And if I didn't disable filtering, this is what he'd look like, which is, you know, not really the look we're going for. This, in my opinion, this looks much better. Now, and here I've added a couple of buttons. Now, this is really funky. Why am I doing this? Because you'll see in the sprite, when I'm initializing the sprites, I'm doing a load image and I'm passing in the return value into the sprite constructor. But when I create the button, I'm just doing a load image, doing nothing with the return value, and then I'm passing in a file name here. And the reason for that is that the CCUI buttons don't take an image as a constructor value, they only take pass. And what'll end up happening if I just pass the path in, well, it's a bit of a tongue twister. If I just pass the path in, then I won't get to do this disabling the filtering stuff, and it'll end up looking like this, or more specifically, it's the button background. I don't know. I want to disable filtering. I don't want this blurring between the gray area and the blue area and all that. So basically, what I have to do is I have to do a load image, pass in the same file name, and what cocos. And if you don't know what's going on internally, then this won't make any sense to you. But if you do know what's going on. What's going on is that cocos2d inside has this thing called a texture cache, and you can see that right here. I'm using the texture cache. And what this does is, luckily the buttons internally also use the texture cache, so what this does is when I load an image using the texture cache, the second time I try to load it, it will just give me the same image. It won't load it again. It'll use the same one that's already been loaded for performance purposes. So the reason I do this here is so that the image gets all this stuff applied to it, and then when the button tries to load it, it's getting this image. Oops. It's getting this image that I just fucked around with and disabled all the filtering like I wanted to. Right. Okay. Oh, looks like this episode's dragging on a bit, so I'm just going to end it right here, and I'll see you next time.